So.
Milo, let me jump in with a last quick question. I never let anybody go without Bishop Sheen. I went to Fulton Sheen's funeral. We say full Sheen ahead. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Did any of Fulton Sheen's material touch your soul? Question. I have no idea.
Oh, of course. So I have a friend who runs a think tank in Washington D.C. who has been sending me his stuff for years.
Okay.
Big Roman, and I before I even really was touched by his spiritual message, he influenced me a lot in public speaking, in delivery, in this amazing way he had, the throat slashers in his thing about, the false compassion, which is my favorite of his talks. False compassion, he's talking about endless compassion for the thieves, the muggers, the throat slashers. His diction and his delivery had a huge impact on me as a public speaker, as a stand-up, as a lecturer. And then I guess the spiritual components caught up with me later, and suddenly I'm like, okay, well that's all fine, but that's not really what he's talking about now. Probably the Catholic of the last 100 years has affected me the most, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Milo, here's the big question that probably the audience wants to hear is, how did Milo Yiannopoulos go from a gay conservative activist speaker to Milo 2.0 Catholic disciple for Christ?
Amen.
I mean, what happened? Tell us about that journey quickly.
No, we want to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not so much of a leap as it might sound. My first job in journalism was at the Catholic Herald, which is a conservative British Catholic newspaper in London. And so I was raised Catholic. I've always been a Catholic. The only real difference is that I finally started to live up to my responsibilities, I suppose. I don't know if it's that. I mean, I'm still the same guy. I still have the same sense of humor, unfortunately. Same potty mouth, unfortunately.
With a different haircut. With a different haircut, by the way, I might add.
It's a more humble haircut, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I'm still the same guy. I just started to live up to my responsibilities. Nobody is homosexual, but there are people who, as a result of things that happened to them early in childhood, have a cluster of disordered desires, and the vast majority of people give in to them and indulge in them. And I just decided that it was probably a good idea to not do that and tell other people to not do that after a lifetime of hypocrisy. I gave speeches, right? Catholic Church is right about everything. I gave a speech in 2015. People don't seem to remember that. And every time anybody asked me about homosexuality, like, yeah, well, if I could push a button and change it, I would. And then one day I just woke up and I'm like, well, actually, I can. It's called self-control.
Amen.
So I do. I have the button.
Yes.
So I pushed the button, I guess, or stopped pushing the button, depending on how you look at it. So I just thought I should really do what I was telling other people to do for the better part of a decade, and life has begun to improve ever since.
Thank you, G.
In some ways.
Milo, let me just ask you. Let me jump in a question, because I live in Southern California. Okay.
Sorry.
I knew if I said that, I set him up for that, Jess.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm happy camper. But I have a lot of people that I know as friends even who have same-sex attraction. And I noticed you just said earlier in the show that you choose this. Can you explain what you mean by that, please?
So you certainly don't choose to have these desires, but you can definitely choose not to act on them.
Okay.
And, homosexuality is a cluster of symptoms that arises from the technical kind of, if you want to be really specific and technical about it, it arises in young men who did not form platonic bonds, meaningful, lifelong, sincere, authentic platonic bonds with other men when they were growing up. Now, that could be the result of abuse. It often is abuse involved in there, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just dad was away or dad was crap. Yeah. And there weren't any male role models around, and that young boy was like dorky or nerdy and never really formed, didn't play sports and didn't form healthy, normal relationships with other boys. That bit you can't really choose. You don't really have a lot of control over that. That's just something that happens to you, but you do have control over how you respond to it. And if you are a sincere, God-fearing, church-going Christian, if you are Catholic, you have to want what's best for you. You have to want what God wants for you, and He wants you to wrestle against this, to fight against it with all your might and all your willpower. And it turns out that if you follow one of the treatment programs from people like Joseph Nicolosi,
good friend of ours.
or his. Yeah, right. So his son is still alive.
Right.
Nicolosi Senior is kind of the godfather of all this.
Yep.
Nicolosi Junior is still doing his father's great work, and any therapist trained by either of them.
Yes, he's fantastic.
They're really the ones you want to go to. And it turns out that 1 in 10. I'm not going to over egg the pudding or juice the numbers for you. It's only about 1 in 10 of these men find that they are able to have happy, fulfilling, sexually active marriages with women, and many of those people have children. And then everybody else is somewhere in between. But what they all report is that their life has improved immeasurably, because dealing with these urges and impulses is really dealing with the trauma that created them in the first place. And that can only be a good thing for people who are still wrestling, because there are probably other things that are going on in your life. There are probably other character habits, maybe addictive behaviors, other kinds of things that are haunting you that are also stem from that same trauma. So whatever your success rate with the sexual stuff, finding out what caused it in the first place and fixing that will make your life better regardless, and will definitely help to bring you closer to God. Because although Nicolosi Jr. doesn't like to talk too much in terms of Catholicism, all of the therapies that family and that sort of dynasty, that strand of therapy have created, they're all, I like to say, Catholic inflected. They're about, and many of the stuff that's most effective is about replacing bad habits with good habits. And there's no religion that has more habits and ritual than ours. Whether it's the rosary, whether it's mass, the repetition, all the rest of it. That the way that it can help to structure your thoughts and break addictive rituals is very powerful.
Milo, would you say that doing the Psalms and Proverbs, recording them, has that helped you to properly form your faith at a deeper level? And has that helped your interior life as well, just doing those little projects with Church Militant?
Yeah, look, I've been a commentator, I guess you would say, for a decade. I'm the best in the business. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. I've made a fortune. I've been one of the most famous people in the country. Now I'm not. And I've got the.
I love it.
But look, I have had it all, and I have not had it all, and now I have somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
As of today, I'm somewhere in the middle, and I was not any happier that spiritually at the top or the bottom than I am now, because they're not really related. So what I have had the opportunity to do with Church Militant is pick projects that are better for, selfishly really, but that are better for my interior spiritual life. I could sit on the download desk at Church Militant every night of the week and just mouth off about things. And I do sometimes when I'm up there.
I
but
noticed.
that's not, thanks. But I don't really find myself growing particularly quickly or in a meaningful direction, unless I'm on with Christine Niles, of course. I found that picking projects where I can spend time thinking and reading and learning and then sharing that with others, that's really powerful for me. Since I've been giving you this interview, I've realized, my accent flies all over the place. And if you're thinking, well, why do I want this sort of Madonna, Gillian Anderson style mid-Atlantic fake accent recording of the Psalms and Proverbs? I promise I call a British person before I get into the booth every time.
I get it.
Normal. No, I do. Help me. No, it's definitely been the thing that I've done in the last few years that has made the most difference to my interior life, because it's not just gobbing off about the news, but rather I have to, every time every single psalm is incredible and bizarre and wonderful and moving in some new different way.
Milo, let me jump in one more time. I'm a jumper. I want to know something. You're working with Church Militant, which is always a great organization to share the gospel with people. You've had a huge influence on people for a decade. Not by sharing the gospel in the sense of what you're doing now. What are you doing to try to influence a world that acts like God doesn't exist? In other words, what's the best approach? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
It's very tempting in my position, sorry to sound like this and sorry to speak like this, but having achieved so much,
of course,
just killing feminism for 2 generations of young men, helping to put a president in office. His national director said I was one of the 7 people who helped to do it, and I don't know if that's true really, but
wow,
having achieved so much, it's very tempting to say, well, I've paid my dues and I think I'm going to retreat into a spiritual life and look after me for the next few decades. I'm trying not to do that, although it's tempting. One of the main things I think I'm going to be doing is probably another college tour, and I will probably be more focused on. It'll be more focused on Pray the Gay Away. I went to Penn State recently, just for a little taster. I just dipped my toe back in to see if I still like it, and I liked it.
Good.
So I went there, and of course, because it's a publicly funded university, they screamed and cried and resisted, and after about a year and a half, we managed to get it done. And they had to pay me, a reasonable market speaking fee, which for someone like me is kind of a lot of money. And then we had ticket sales, and a couple people phoned up with these incredible donations. So we ended up, with I think $22,000 or $23,000 that came in all together, and I put it up on a screen, and I said, the Milo Clinic. Which is my name for the center I'm going to open in Florida.
Good.
Thanks, Pennsylvania State University, for this generous donation. Your kindness will save dozens of young men from the dangerous homosexual urges. The college authorities went crazy. This is probably the first time, I think it's the first time probably in 50 years, maybe 100 years, where the American taxpayer has directly funded conversion therapy. I intend to do a lot more of that. So
I love it. Keep it up. I love it.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a lot more of that. That's
Good
one
job.
thing. So I got some ideas.
Great.
Good. Yeah. So you answered my next question. I was going to ask you, are you going to move into some type of, Dr. Joseph Nicolosi type reparative therapy work? You just answered the question. Yes, you are. And you want to set up.
I mean, I'm not going to be doing it. I'm certainly in no position to do that for anybody else.
Right.
But one thing I am good at is kind of getting attention for things and putting pieces of organizations together, putting bits of the puzzle together. So I'm going to open a center in Florida down where I live.
Excellent.
So, we'll get therapists in. It certainly won't be me, obviously, but we'll get therapists in. We'll have an in-house priest, maybe one of the canceled priests that needs a home and needs a good ministry and good work to do. We'll have daily masses and services, and we'll have all of the world-class therapy, and we'll start having residential treatment programs. I haven't really advertised that too much. I've said it in interviews a few times. We don't really have a website or anything to speak of, but we've had $250,000 come in already for that.
Awesome.
So that makes me think that when I actually do try to raise money, we might do okay. So that's something to look forward to.
Well, when you do, brother, come back and we want to promote it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Jesse.
Milo,
please, you'll be the first to know, guys. I promise.
Thanks.
Milo, what about? He's not listening to the program because we don't want him to get a big head. But has Michael Voris had an impact? He's on your reconversion.
Okay. Have you ever had that sort of relationship where you feel like somebody kind of like low key saved your life, and as a result you can't stand to be in the same room as them? There's just this wave of resentment and loathing, just sort of like this bubbles up. You just want to stab him in the throat, What could I ever do? Michael obviously had an enormous. He's our friend, so we can joke, can't we?
Yeah.
He had an enormous. He's the single person on earth who's affected this trajectory of mine the most, and he knows that, and he knows how grateful I am for that. It does make me absolutely hate his guts sometimes, but we have like a funny kind of fraternal relationship now where I like pretend to tease and dislike him, and he's just like whatever, and then occasionally he'll turn around and go, read the last line in James's epistle. You're just a pawn. Yeah. And I'll go and read it. It's like, somebody who brings a brother back from the brink, is good for your own soul. He's like, you're just a chess piece, brother. It's like,
good one.
Like a month of me sniping and making jokes and undermining him in front of his employees and being catty, and he'll just nuke me with one line. So you're just a pawn.
Yep, I love it.
But he is. Look, as well as I do that almost every Catholic organization, especially the media organizations, is hopelessly compromised.
Yes, big time.
The closer you get to the magisterium, the worse it gets, unfortunately.
Yep.
Church Militant is one of the only places, and I've been in every conservative media organization in the country. I've either worked for them or consulted with them or written for them. I know them all, and there's probably 2 or 3 media organizations that are not poisonous, cancerous, toxic, whatever. Church Militant is the real deal. And it's why it's not the biggest, it's not the most glamorous, but it has the best people. They are the most honest, decent, and good Catholics working in media, with the exception of yourselves and a couple of other radio hosts that I have discovered. You have to say that, don't you? I'm just kidding.
We paid him for that. Terry, send him a check. Send him a check, Terry.
I'm just kidding. I'm doing Psalms and Proverbs available now. No, I'm just kidding. They honestly, the concentration of decent, God-fearing, wonderful people in that building is just mind-blowing. And there isn't, in an organization of 65 people, there isn't a bad one, which just never happens. Everybody there is kind and lovely, and I'm very happy and grateful that they have decided to partner with as unwieldy an institution as Milionopolis. So we're very happy brothers in the fight.